Hello, and welcome to the first video in our 4-part series on the new Mission Control component for Security Center. In this video series, we'll take an in-depth look at what Mission Control can do, how to install and configure the software, different configuration options we can use for incidents, and how operators would be using Mission Control for monitoring and reporting. This first video is going to give you more of a high-level look at Mission Control, so you know why it was created, who the intended clients are, and what differentiates it from the current solutions that are out there. We'll also take this opportunity to show you what it can do, so you have a better idea of what we're configuring in later parts of this video series. There are 4 examples of incidents that we'll see, each one slightly more complex than the previous one, and we'll finish the demo portion off looking at the reporting functions. In later videos, we'll talk about how to set up the role and configure incidents, more advanced features that we can use for incidents and how to set them up, and finally look at incident monitoring from an operator's perspective and how we can get more information from the reporting task. What is Mission Control? Before we get all involved with creating incidents and configuring roles, we really need to take a step back and consider what Mission Control is and why we would use this new Security Center component. When considering what was needed to improve Security Center, we took a look at the current state of detection, response, and analysis of events and incidents that happen in a security environment, and how we handle them in the Security Center platform. When considering the detection of security incidents, are the system events sufficient to recognize what's going on? So, can an operator look at the events coming in and know what's really happening at the scene of the incident? Are the operators dealing with too many events and alarms? This could lead to sensory overload, and a vital event or alarm may slip past unnoticed if there's too much to analyze in the interface. How do we structure the unstructured incoming data? We could be getting a lot of events coming in, so how do we know which ones are relevant to other events? We could have just gotten a door forced open event, but was there a previous event showing that the cardholder was denied access? Not everything is connected to an input sensor on a security device, so how do we track and report personnel-triggered incidents? How can we alert operators of an incident such as a lost child or a bag left unattended? These are all important questions when looking at how we recognize incidents, which leads to more questions on how we respond to them. Do we facilitate proactive response planning? Meaning, do we have something in place to help set procedures on how to deal with events when they happen, and not just react to an incident? Can we go beyond traditional alarm management? Alarms are pretty flexible and can be used in different ways to alert operators of a problem, but what more can we do to expand the use and functionality of an alerting system like that? Does threat level management allow for a complete response? We can do a lot in terms of alerting people and performing actions when modifying threat levels on a system, but does it do everything? How are personnel-triggered incidents managed? We may be able to trigger an alarm or set a threat level for the lost child or abandoned baggage, but do we know who is looking into the problem? What happens if this leads to something bigger like a bomb threat? How can we react to that? Finally, a big part of this is analysis. The only way to know how to deal with a problem better the next time is if you can see how you dealt with it in the past. How do our customers solve or close incidents? Do the resolution tracking methods contain all the information they need? Do we offer the right toolset to evaluate response efficiency or audit actual responses? Can a security administrator look at the incidents after the fact and tell how well their team did at responding to the problem, and who was involved at the different stages of the response? And last, how do we help customers continually improve? What kind of information are we giving them, and how can they use it to streamline their security processes to better respond to incidents? When considering this information and what can be done with the existing alarms, threat levels, and event-to-action processes in Security Center, we determined we needed something else for larger organizations that deal with a lot of data and incidents on a daily basis. Mission Control was not created as a plugin or add-on software module, but is a key component along the same lines as Omnicast, Synergis, and AutoView. It has been built on top of the Security Center platform for better integration than just using the existing plugin modules. We're going to talk a lot about incidents in this video series, so I just want to pause to talk about what we mean when we use that term and clarify the difference from the existing use of the term in Security Center. Currently, an incident is a collection of events and entities, such as specific cameras and doors, that are attached to an incident report and sorted under a category. These incidents can be searched for later using the Incidents task, where we can filter the report based on some of the information provided, such as the category or one of the attached reference entities. While useful, these type of incidents have more of a bookkeeping functionality and are not as useful for actually managing what to do while there's an ongoing security event happening on site. An incident in Mission Control can be defined as a situation that requires actions in order to be resolved. Incidents can have conditions that need to be met before it is triggered, and can have a workflow that changes various incident parameters or triggers other actions while the incident is in progress. For example, we could only want to trigger an incident if we had an access denied event and then had a door forced open event within 30 seconds of the previous event. The workflow could be configured to change the priority of the incident when somebody was actively investigating the situation, and send an email once the incident has been resolved. The sources of the events that trigger the incident can be set to specific entities, like the main lobby door, or can be applied to any entity that can send that event. Incidents can be triggered automatically using the event conditions we mentioned, but we could also trigger them manually if needed. An incident can be managed by multiple operators at different times, and have states to indicate the progress in the handling of the situation. Operators are given a list of procedures to follow, which can be configured to be done in a strict order, or in any order, and can include prompts for information as well as provide documents to review, such as a list of dispatch phone numbers or an image of known suspects. These procedures help guide operators in responding to incidents based on what has happened and the current state of the investigation. For example, we may have a door in an airport that leads out to the tarmac, and it has a crash bar installed with a door sensor. We could get an event that the crash bar was pushed and the door was opened. Did someone go through? Was it a false alarm due to someone leaning on it accidentally? Is there someone out on the tarmac now who shouldn't be there? These are all questions that can be put in procedures for the operator who is handling the incident to verify and provide more information if needed. If there's any kind of case management being done, this helps provide response information, since everything that is done in the incident is recorded and timestamped. For example, if an administrator wants to see how long it took for an operator to take ownership of an incident after it was created, they could see that from the list of activities. They could also note who took ownership in case they wanted to follow up on any of the incident details for their case. A typical Security Operations Center, or SOC, would have a list of standard operating procedures, or SOPs, that indicate what actions should be taken to respond to different kinds of situations. Traditionally, this could be a series of binders with sheets of paper for each kind of incident and the steps to follow, and would have been managed by a small team of people. However, this can lead to a problem if there are a limited number of people who know how to respond to incidents or have all the knowledge needed to adequately deal with the situation. What happens if this knowledge is always handled by the same two people, but one of them is on vacation and the other is called in sick for the day? The remaining operators would be unsure how to handle an incident that's not within their usual day-to-day activities, and their judgment may be hindered by an emotional response or the stress of the situation. This is where Mission Control comes in, as it is more than just a list of standard operating procedures, and it manages more than just the events that come in and alarms that are triggered. Since Mission Control is monitoring and handling the information that's coming in and being collected in Security Center, we could consider it a datavalent system. Now, this doesn't mean we just take those binders of information and throw them out the window, since those are procedures that have been tested and have been modified to best handle a situation. These SOPs that are currently in use can be entered into Mission Control as the basis of our procedures to help track and guide the security operator's responses. Having the procedures being given directly from the security desk and prompting for further information helps remove emotion from the situation and improves the efficiency and consistency of the operator's responses. Further down the line, Mission Control will have dynamic procedures that will adapt to input and procedure responses from the operators to provide a flexible solution to a potentially variable incident. The Mission Control component has been designed to typically be used with larger sites with a lot of events and incident information coming in, where it would benefit the operators who are trying to recognize and handle these incidents as they come in. The clients would probably already have a unified security center system in place, and a security operations center that has been dealing with the incidents in a more traditional fashion or using a PSIM. A PSIM is a physical security integrated management system, which is usually a very expensive and complex custom solution that runs on scripts and doesn't have the same graphical interface or unified integration that Mission Control has. Mission Control is not considered a PSIM, but instead is considered a DSS, or Decision Support System. There are some similarities between PSIMs and Mission Control, such as having a single operator interface, common operational tools like procedures, and would be used by the same type of client, such as airports, universities, or casinos. There are a few critical differentiators, however. First and foremost is that PSIMs integrate at the presentation layer and are just sort of sitting on top of or to the side of an existing system. Mission Control is fully integrated with Security Center and is part of the unified solution. PSIMs are mostly designed to be compatible with one system and one version, which makes management difficult if the version changes. With Mission Control, we know it's going to be compatible with Security Center, even if there are upgrades to be done. Support of the system is also an issue, since it will have been designed by a separate third-party vendor than the main surveillance system. Mission Control support goes along with Security Center, so any problems all go to one place for a solution. PSIMs are usually highly customized and complex software solutions that are made for one particular client, whereas Mission Control runs on the Security Center platform, which is used by tens of thousands of systems. From a budget perspective, Mission Control is a lot cheaper than what you'd have to pay for an equivalent PSIM, since it's not a custom build and can be installed and configured right off the shelf. Taking a look at the reporting features, Mission Control can also help streamline the efficiency of the security force, helping the administrators see where possible problems or delays may occur in the incident procedures, or even help with deployment. For example, looking at an airport with 3 different terminals that have independent security personnel patrolling in each, we could see that there are not enough people in Terminal A to deal with the daily incidents that typically occur in that terminal. Looking at Terminal B, there are significantly less incidents, but they have the same number of people on security duty. The administrator could reassign people from B over to A as needed to balance out the workload based on the incidents. The administrators could continue to monitor the situation and move people around as needed based on the daily incident trends, instead of having to hire more people for Terminal A and have inactive people in Terminal B. Past incidents can be viewed in the reporting task with all the details, so the administrators can look at the big picture in terms of the number of incidents per location and how many critical versus high priority incidents, all the way down to a granular level of who responded to a particular procedure step, how long it took them to do so, and what kind of details were given in the comments. From an operator's perspective, Mission Control is best used in a multi-monitor environment. A good setup would be a 4-monitor workstation, where one monitor would be used for the monitoring task or general use, and the other 3 can be used to separate the parts of the new incident monitoring task. We can start separate incident monitoring tasks for each of the 3 monitors, and then use the options to limit what each one shows. For example, we could have our main monitor on the bottom left, where we would have our monitoring and alarm monitoring tasks running. On the monitor above that, we could put an incident monitoring task for our plan manager map that's in use for the incident. We would want to go into the options, choose Map Only, and uncheck the Show Dashboard option. On the top right monitor, we could decide to put our incident list. Opening a new incident monitoring task in that monitor, we can again go to the options, turn off the Show Dashboard option, but this time we're choosing List Only. Our 4th monitor on the bottom right could be where we want to view the dashboard, which contains the details of the incident and the list of activities and procedures. The easiest way to do this is to have List Only and Show Dashboard checked, and then drag the 4 dots here all the way over on the side of the screen. These options give us a lot of flexibility, such as another example using a 2-monitor setup where we could use the Plan Manager map on one screen and then the list and the dashboard on the second screen. I just want to point out that Mission Control can be used without having Plan Manager configured and maps created, but it's much more useful being able to see where on the map an incident is happening and what is nearby. Mission Control Demonstration. Let's have a look at 4 scenarios and how we would create and investigate them as incidents in Mission Control. We'll also have a look at the report view for the incidents that we have investigated on a system as well. We're going to take a look at how we can react to a lost child, a door forced open in a secure zone, motion in an area where there is a door violation, and how we can react to one of the glass break sensors going off in a zone. Each of these examples will increase the complexity of the response and configuration of Mission Control, and we'll take a brief look at how they're configured after each one. This should give you a good idea of how Mission Control operates and make it easier to follow the configuration steps in the following configuration videos. Looking at our first scenario, we have an airport with a Security Operations Center that's running Mission Control and ready to respond to any incidents. In Mission Control, we can have 2 types of incident generation, automatic and manual. Automatic incidents are created based on the flow of events as they come in. We'll see those in the next 3 examples, but in this example there's no way Security Center can know if a child is lost, so we have to rely on manual incident creation for this. Typically, an airport or large installation like this would have phones or information desks with agents ready to help the public in case there are any problems. The security team in the operations center would have people manning the phones to be ready for any requests that come in for incidents such as unattended luggage or lost children. In our scenario, one of our operators gets a call just like that. A child has been lost and one of their parents used the airport's emergency phone to call the security team. From the incident monitoring task, the operator would select the map on the location the child was last seen, in our case, Terminal 3. They would then right-click on the map on the last known location of the child and choose Trigger Incident. From here, we would get a pop-up window with our current list of incident types that have been created. We need to select one and could put any comments on the incident initiation, such as the name and cell phone number of the parent who phoned in the lost child. This will create a new incident on our map. Note that we already have an active incident on our map. Creating incident types with different colors and icons make the ones that we are looking for easily identifiable. We can also see the 2 active incidents in the list view above, including their priority, state, location, who's monitoring the incident, and who the owner is. When we click on an incident to view the details, we're not owning the incident yet, we're simply looking at it, so we're put in the monitoring column. To take ownership of the incident, we can right-click on it in the list, or on the icon in the map, and select Take Ownership. Or we can click on the button below the incident details in the dashboard, and choose to change the state to In Progress. If we get called away on another incident or have to leave before completing the incident, we can right-click on it and choose to release ownership. We can take ownership of several incidents at once if needed. In our most basic type of incident, we would create the incident, take ownership like this, and then we would follow our procedures in the dashboard on the side. In the procedure setup, we can choose to be able to skip some of the steps if needed, which will prompt for a skip reason, and we can configure the incident to allow the operator to do the steps out of order. Our first step indicates a mandatory text box, which is to record the description of the child. Once we click on the step to mark it as done, we'll be presented with a text box. In our scenario, we would include as many details as we receive from the parent over the phone. Take a look below the procedure list and we can see the latest activity. This is color-coded for easier browsing, and we can see all the details of what we have done in the incident so far, including the child's description we just entered and the comments from the incident creation, as well as the time we took ownership of the incident. If we spotted the child on a camera, we could add that camera to the related entities, and if we have any common documents that might help with the incident, we would include those in the related documents. The Related Incidents allows you to see any incidents of the same type over the time period you select on top, and you could also link incidents together from here. A good example of a linked incident is if an incident was created for an abandoned piece of luggage, and on further investigation it turned out to contain explosives. We would want to create a new incident for this, such as bomb threat, and follow the appropriate procedures, but we would link it to the lost luggage so the full investigation into the incident can be followed afterwards. On top, we can click on the Edit button to change the description, the external ID, and the priority if needed. For some incident types, we may want to start it at a certain priority, and we can raise or lower it based on the investigation that follows. We'll take a look at a glass break incident in a few minutes, but for that example, we may see that the glass is only cracked and the vandal has fled, so we could lower the priority and continue with the investigation. Looking at our procedure list, we can keep going with our investigation into the lost child. Having all the steps in place here will ensure we don't forget to do something, like alert the video surveillance team to watch for the child, or page the public announcement system asking the child to proceed to an information kiosk in the airport. We could keep this incident open until we find the child, then check the last box and write where the child was found, and then change the state of the incident to solved. If we need more time to check on something or are waiting on information, you can park an incident which puts it on hold. We could also add custom states that we could change it to, such as paging supervisor or waiting for security team. Just click on the three dots on the bottom, or right-click on the incident in the list or on the map and choose Change State to modify it. The list presented will only be the available states you can go to from your current state, which is also customizable. Choosing to solve a case when we are unable to have unvalidated steps will ask us if we want to validate all and resolve, cancel, or resolve without checking the steps. From here we can close the case and it will be removed from our incident list. That's a very simple example of how we can use a basic incident to help guide the operator in the steps they would need to follow to process an incident. Taking a look at our incident configuration task in the Config tool, we can see our basic properties for the incident that we created, including the custom icon and the map indicator color. The procedure is where we list our steps that we need to follow, including if we need to have a mandatory comment from the operator, and the options for skipping steps or following them in order. In our next example, we're going to step it up a notch and make an incident that's triggered automatically. In this example, we're going to look at an incident type that we'll call door forced, and what we want to do is have this incident created whenever somebody triggers a door forced open event on our door to the secure area. We could have this set to a general door forced incident as well, but in our case, we want to have special procedures in place for the secure area. So what would happen is if somebody opens the door to the secure area without unlocking it first, we get the door forced open event, which would trigger an incident on the map. Once again, we have our custom icon and pin color so we know what kind of incident we're looking at here. Clicking on the incident and taking ownership, we can see our tasks that we need to do include giving a description of the suspect from the video recorded by nearby cameras. Next, we need to know if the suspect actually passed through the door, so are they in the secure area? The last step is to dispatch a security team to wherever the suspect was last seen, either in the secure area or elsewhere if they fled the scene. Looking at our activity, we can see that the incident was triggered by the system, meaning it was done automatically based on an event or series of events. Taking a look at the actual incident in the config tool, we have the standard properties that we'd seen previously, and our list of procedures defined similar to before, including where we need to have some type of comment or information, and that we want the operators to follow the steps in order. Where this one differs is in the Triggers tab. This is how we define what will automatically create an incident for us. This is a very simple example, and we'll see something more complicated in a minute, but we've added the door forced open event from the secure entrance door as the trigger. The only way this event will automatically be created is if all our trigger conditions are met. You can see that we can add events from here too, so we can have a series of events that must happen in order before the incident will be created. If we open the details for this particular event that we have in the triggers, we can see that it's a very simple event layout with the possibility of other options and more entities. So let's take a look at something more advanced in terms of a door forced open event that could create an incident. Looking at the evidence locker zone, in this scenario we want to know if someone is trying to force their way into the evidence locker, possibly using a stolen badge. The conditions we want to meet in order to create an incident are that we get an access denied event from the evidence locker door twice, then a door forced open event, and finally motion on the camera that's inside the evidence locker. We also want to make sure that all this happens within a certain time frame. We want the two access denied events to happen within 30 seconds of each other, and we'll set a timeout on the camera motion to be 1 minute. That way, if someone tries to access the door twice, then forces it, but walks away, we won't get a false incident triggered the next time somebody legitimately walks in the room and causes a motion event from the camera. Without having the timeout intervals, the conditions for the event will stay active and it will wait for the next trigger event until we say otherwise. In this incident, we want the operator to check if the cardholder picture on the access denied event looks like the person they caught on camera. This will help identify if there's a stolen card that's in circulation, and they can see which credential from the access denied event. In the next step, we want to review the list of security personnel to make sure it isn't someone from the security team that's doing some testing. To make sure everyone knows who is on the security team, we have a handy document available, but taking the time to pull it up on the network or from a website takes us away from the incident. Instead, we can attach the document directly in this step. Now we can click right on the document from here, and it will pull it up so we can take a look at the pictures of the security team and verify it's not one of them in the video. As you can see, we can have multiple documents as well, so it'll pull up a small list to prompt for the one we want to view, or open all of them. In the next two steps, we're allowing the operators to skip one of them and either contact the identified person about the security breach, or skip to the next step and alert the security team that there's someone unauthorized that's accessing the zone with a potentially stolen card. Let's hop over to the config tool to see the setup for this incident. Everything is almost the same in the properties, except I did make a change here where I only want this incident to be seen by one specific user. Nobody else would see this incident. There are more options where we can specify when it can be received and for which area, and we can also say who to forward the incident to in case all of the primary recipients are not available. Our procedures are fairly standard except for the step where we verify the photos of the security personnel. We can see from that one we've added a document or a series of documents that are grouped under the security personnel name. In the Triggers tab, this is where all those conditions we defined would be set up. On top, we have our first condition to be met, where we want to see an access denied event on the evidence locker door. This must happen twice within 30 seconds. Then we want to see a door forced open event for the same door. If we have a time condition on a step, like the 30-second timeout on the previous access denied step, we can't have a time condition on the next step after it. If both of these conditions are met in order, the last thing we need to happen to trigger the incident is the motion on event from the camera we placed in the storage locker room. As we mentioned, we want to make sure this happens within a minute of the door force so we don't get false incidents. This is a more advanced set of triggers, but there's still more we can do to customize an incident. If the incident is triggered and created on the map, we can also define a series of steps that can be done while the incident is in progress. We call these workflows, and we'll see that in action in the next example. In this example, we're going to look at our evidence locker room again. There are two windows looking in on this room to be able to see if anyone is in there at any given time. We have two independent glass break sensors attached to the windows, and they're connected to the inputs on a V2000 unit. In Security Center, we have set up a zone for this room with both of the inputs and a custom event to be sent if either of the inputs goes into an active state. So within Mission Control, we want to automatically create an incident if either of those glass break inputs goes active. Since glass should normally not be broken and there may be sensitive items in this room, we want this to be a critical priority incident. Here's where it gets interesting. What we would like to have happen is that the columns would change red as soon as the incident is created. Then, when somebody actually takes ownership of the incident and it goes in progress, we want to lower the priority to high, change the columns to yellow, and play a bell sound. This will alert the other operators that it's okay, someone is looking into it. Once the incident actually moves into a solved state, we want to change the columns back to the default color before it's closed, so it's not drawing any attention to itself. Let's take a look at how that can happen. We've placed our input objects on the map so we can see the state changes near each one of the windows. When one of the inputs goes active, this triggers the glass break zone event, creating our incident in this zone. Once I take ownership of the incident and place it in progress, the columns turn yellow, the priority drops to high, as noted by the arrow indicating a priority drop, and we hear a bell sound. Now I can go through the steps needed to properly handle this incident, starting with checking to see which members of the security staff I have in the area to respond to this. Once I choose who should respond, I can dispatch them and include the officer names in the step. After the officer responds to the incident, they will report in and I can list the damage to the window. In this case, there was a hole smashed in the pane. We would then contact our building maintenance staff to fix the hole, since we can't leave a room like this unsecured. To make sure nothing fishy happens, we would also contact our security officer to ask them to stay on site until the window is repaired and the room can be considered secure again. After that, we can mark this incident as solved. Note that the yellow colored bars disappeared in the incident list. From here we can close it and we're good to go. Looking at our incident, there's nothing special in the properties, and the trigger is very simple, just the event on that zone. It's a pretty straightforward procedure list as well, so there's no surprises there. But let's take a look at the Workflow tab, which we previously hadn't seen so far. We have the start of our workflow on top, and each action we want cascading down from there. We can move these around and change the links to make it easier to visually follow if needed. Along the side, we have our list of activities that we can use. Some related specifically to incidents, others are for Security Center. The first thing we see is that we change the color of the columns in the list to red, which is an incident activity. Then we use another incident activity, which is to wait for the incident state to go to In Progress. Further down the list, we can see we used a Security Center activity, which is to play a sound. Now, we don't have all the actions possible in here, but we do have a good sample of important ones that we want to trigger. If there's anything specific we'd like to do, but it's not in the list, we could always trigger an alarm and have those actions linked to the alarm. We'll take a look at the full list of activities in a later video. So that's a look at the kind of things we can do with mission control incidents from an operator's perspective and the configuration needed, but let's take a brief look at what an administrator can do with that data. Our other new task in the security desk is the Incident Report task, which is used to view previous incidents. This task runs like the Incident Monitoring task, with the list of tasks above, the Plan Manager map tile below, and the incident details in the dashboard on the right. Additionally, we have our list of report filters similar to other Security Center reporting tasks. We can limit our list of results down based on the incident type, such as our glass break or lost child incidents, the state of the incident, such as seeing any that are solved but not closed, and the location of the incident referring to the map area that the incident was associated with. Additionally, we can filter on the priority in case we want to only see high or critical incidents, the trigger time, which is the relative or specific time range to view, and the owner and description of the incident. All of these can help limit the report so we can see exactly the information we're searching for to help make decisions on our security deployment, or to find a particular incident that we want to review for operator evaluation or case reporting purposes. Once we run the report and we have our list of incidents, we can click on one to bring it up in the dashboard and map below. That way we can see where the past incident took place, and all the details on who followed which procedure step, and any comments or system actions that were added along the way while the steps were being done. Just like in the incident monitoring task, we can see which procedures were marked as completed, and the time and date that the activities took place when the incident was being handled. If we have any related incidents that were linked to this one, they will show up, as well as any entities, such as cameras and doors, that were associated with this incident while it was being investigated. All the information the administration team will need to evaluate the incident responses can be found in this one task. This concludes Part 1 of our Mission Control training series. Please take a look for Part 2, where we look at the actual installation and configuration of Mission Control and how to set up a basic incident. Thank you for watching.